Greetings, and thanks for joining us for the inaugural stream launch of the XP Network. I am your less than humble host, Lavender, and joined with me are two gentlemen who are about to engage in the most epic of boss battles. To my left is CEO and owner of Jasco Games, Jason. Jason, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Excellent. To my right is the Lord of Lord Raptor himself, Mr. Chris Pratt. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Doing good.
Excellent. So to preface this match a little bit, it's been building for quite a while. Chris had an outstanding 8-0 run at the Las Vegas 2K local at the Level Up Expo. Shortly after that, he engaged in a nail-biter of a grudge match between his sensei and mentor, Shane Duckworth. You came out victorious in that match. What did it feel like to beat your mentor in such a close, intense match?
That was really gratifying, man. He's a great player, and he played well. I still managed to take it, so it felt amazing.
Excellent. So one thing I'm going to talk about is how you have no idea really what you're about to play against right now. Let's talk about the lead up into this boss battle.
Well, it all just started with a phone call. A random phone was just handed to me, and a voice on the other side said, pick the worst symbol in the game. So with my crazy kind of weird Dr. Wily deck in mind, I chose death. And he says, well, a death deck is coming to take you down.
All right, so from what I understand, this deck has been being built and perfected and crafted for the past month. Jason, how do you feel about your deck going into this match?
I like surprises, and it's filled with surprises.
Do you have any hidden tech or surprises that you kind of want to cue your opponent into before the match begins?
Well, if I'm going to give away the secret right now, I'm not running any blocks.
Any final words for your opponent before this match begins?
I like cheese.
Why cheese?
It's cheesy.
All right, back to you, casters, for this amazing boss battle.
Thank you, Lavender, for that awesome intro. I am Mohawk Mike, joined here once again by Garrett, our resident world champion, UFS expert, for a show match of all ages. Garrett, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. You flatter me, Mike. I'm really glad to be back. It was always a lot of fun.
It was fantastic the first time we casted together for these amazing UFS matches. It was an absolute hoot, and what better way to kick off XP Network here than with this amazing show match. We heard a little bit from both the players there previously. Garrett, what is your 2 cents as far as this matchup?
2 cents? I have more than 2 cents on this matchup. And I've been talking with a lot of the members of the community, players, scouts, all sorts of people involved with the game. And they think Jason has very little chance of winning this.
Oh, wow.
And I'll tell you after talking with Jason just in the recent 24 hours, they may be right. But it's not as bad as they think. It's not as bad as they think. I think he can pull it out.
Ladies and gentlemen, cash in your chips now. We knew it's going to be an exciting match, and there's a lot on the line here. A lot of pride, a lot of glory. As mentioned before, Chris is actually, just on an absolute winning streak. He's steamrolling everybody. But there was a little bit of kind of special circumstance set up with Jason's deck. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, well, apparently Jason felt it within his rights to handicap himself, and so Chris got to decide what Jason would play as far as symbol goes, and then Jason also chose his character and told that to Chris. But aside from that, Chris knows nothing about Jason's deck.
Wow. So let's actually get ready to learn a little bit more about these players. As we mentioned before, we've got Jason, who is the CEO and founder of Jasco Games. We can see here he'll be playing Robert from King of Fighters 13, and his win quote is just another day at work.
And it is just another day at work. I tell you, he's working all the time, but never too hard to play some games.
Yep, never too hard to play some games indeed. As Chris Pratt, we can see, is playing that Lord Raptor deck, the one that's been his champion. He's been playing it all the way through, and his strategy says he just plays cards.
Yeah, and now look, we're looking at the ref. This is Shane Duckworth.
Oh, man. Shane is not messing around. Look at that. UFS is too damn good is his quote. So
he's famous for saying that.
Yeah, so obviously we have one of the obvious best players. We have another best player who's here doing commentary with me. But then also we have Jason, who is a good player.
Jason's a very strong player.
Jason's a strong player, playing a blind deck, at least blind to me. I don't know what he has in his deck. Do you know? Do you have any secrets? Did you see any little tweets or anything as far as what's in his deck?
I've seen the whole deck, and there are a few cards that I think will surprise Chris, his opponent, and definitely a lot of the audience. So this is going to be an exciting match either way. Whether Jason wins or loses, people are going to look at the deck and go, "Oh, really? That works?" And it's going to be surprising.
All right. Well, I can't wait, and we're going to get started with that matchup here very soon. But once again, for any of you guys that are new to UFS or maybe not seen the game style played before, it is based off of fighting games. So think of fighting game in tabletop form, in a card form. Garrett, go ahead and explain that just a little bit more.
Yeah, well, the game is set to mimic these fighting games in this multiple universal system, and that's where the game name comes from, Universal Fighting System. So we have Robert from King of Fighters, as you saw on that character card, against Lord Raptor from the Darkstalker series, and there's also, I just named a couple other licenses involved. You'll see behind us Street Fighter's upcoming Mortal Kombat, but right now there's also a lot of Mega Man in the universe, and so that's what the appeal for this game is, and that's what you're going to see in front. You're going to see cards played in both players' decks from all of these universes.
Yep, well, enough chatting about this epic match. We're going to go ahead and jump into it right now for you guys. We've got Jason versus Chris in a battle for the ages. These guys are going to have the official dice roll, so these guys are going to roll off to see who will actually start first, you know, because as normal gentlemen do, you got to leave it up to chance. You can't just, you know, it's no duel or raw draw here. So
yeah, and something to point out is that whoever wins this dice roll is in a severe advantage. They are very likely to win the game, for game one.
Yep. So it looks Chris rolled a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and oh wow!
Looks like Jason had a very good roll.
He must have been practicing that whole time. He was practicing that whole time that we were doing. All right. Well, these guys are getting ready here. We've got them. You can see they're cutting each other's deck. We want to make sure that everything is up to snuff, same as any other matchup would be. And the ref, look at it's so stern. I can't believe that all the pressure that must be on both of these players now. All right, so let's go ahead and let's get ready for this first round. Let's get ready for the fight call. There it is. There's the call.
They're going round one fight.
Come on. And we see the handshake first off. You know, if it's such a big grudge match, this match has so much on the line, why would they shake hands?
I think there's a lot of pressure on both of the players here, even though it's a show match. Chris has a lot on the table because all of his friends thinks he can easily beat Jason. And on the other side of things, Jason has a lot to prove. He hasn't. A lot of players have never played with him or seen him play, and I think he's going to surprise them with his skill and performance here today.
Let's go ahead and talk a little bit as we're seeing these guys are going to get started in their game. So you can see Chris, his vitality, he's actually starting with only 19, whereas Jason is starting with 29.
Yeah, Chris is a 7-hand size character, so he gets an extra card but has less vitality. Jason has played a couple foundations, good ones, and you'll notice he played the second card on a 0 difficulty before the next 2 difficulty cards because he knows he has a number of 2 checks in his deck, which are risky maneuvers.
So talk to me a little bit more through Jason's strategy here. We've seen that was actually a pretty big opening hand. He's got a lot of foundation there.
Jason had what I would call everything is going well for him so far. He won the dice roll. He won the dice roll. He actually had a good build, 3 cards, and he has the 2 cards in his hand that are really going to define this matchup. You'll see the attack on the left. Blazing Blitz Vortex is actually his secret maneuver, and we saw self-destruct in our last match at the Rochester event, which resets the game, the self-destruct.
Yep, and so we'll see both these players here in their opening hands. They're getting set up here. I'm very curious to see if Chris is going to try and play aggressive, as it seems like he normally does.
Chris is going all in, and he's having a great turn as well. This is setting up for a good game one. I mean, no players have checked well. The cards that are important to the matchup are out. Chris has Ever Hopeful out and a couple of Ophidiophobias, very strong defensive cards. And Jason has a hand where he did have a couple cards in his hand that were offensive. The thing to note is the cards he drew on the second turn are not ideal for an attack turn. He might actually decide to reset the board here. Yep, and he does.
So Jason, there he goes. And the check, he's going to go ahead and use. He's going to expend some cards here.
Yeah, and I think that was a fine decision. You'll notice that Self-destruct destroys all the cards on both players' staging areas except for the character, and that one card that stayed up there, Hsien-Ko Prince, in Jason's staging area, can't be destroyed, which is part of the strategy. He plays these cards that can't be destroyed by anything, and then plays a card that destroys everything. And UFS can't trumps the cam, and so he's going to be ahead of Chris by 2 cards on this reset.
Well, he's got the card advantage and he has the vitality advantage. Well, it would almost seem like just looking at the start of the game that Chris is way down, but as we've seen, that Lord Raptor will just actually swing by. Let's actually go ahead and talk about the character abilities themselves. Lord Raptor we've seen before. He's got a lot of triggering ability.
Yeah, and Lord Raptor has 2 response abilities, whereas Robert has 2 enhance abilities. And the difference between these are the responses are played outside of the enhance step, which allows Lord Raptor to play attacks that don't have an enhanced step, whereas Jason relies heavily on that enhanced step. Chris had a good build there too. And I think Jason is really struggling right now because he hasn't drawn another attack. He needs to go in on Chris early, and so far he's only had the 1 attack in his hand from the beginning of the game.
So he tried to go with the early reset to try and get the board as best of an advantageous spot that he could, but it just seems like now he's just not getting the draw. Which do we know how many cards he has in deck?
I believe he's running just a 60-card deck.
Okay,
yeah. So he's running a very small lean deck. He's just having a couple
tough time.
Bad luck, yeah. But the upshot of that is that he does get a good build. The problem being that Chris's deck can throw more attacks than Jason can block. So if Chris gets a good hand here and goes in, Jason's not in a prime situation, especially since the cards he has in his hand don't have amazing block modifiers, meaning they're harder to block with.
We've seen that Lord Raptor can just ramp pretty much instantaneously, doing huge chunks of damage. Jason may have used all of his luck on that dice roll.
He might have. Chris has an interesting hand. He has 2 attacks that are his marquee attack, Helldunk. And these attacks will allow him to basically see 2 new cards. So he can make the choice to take a risk here and play them and hope to draw more attacks to try to win the game. Or he can try to be very safe and build more foundations. And he's doing exactly the former, playing the Helldunk, seeing what he might get. And then he's probably going to determine how the rest of his turn goes after he plays the Helldunk ability, which is discard 1 card, draw 2 cards.
If you were sitting in Jason's stance right now, what would you be thinking? Aside from, I hope game 2 goes better.
Well, Jason can rely on the fact that he has 29 vitality, and it's still going to be hard for Chris to deal with all of that vitality in 1 turn. He kind of needs to poke. He also really needs momentum. One of Chris's kill conditions involves multiple attack. So it still will be hard for him to beat Jason in 1 turn. It's perfectly possible that he does, but it's very unlikely. So Jason might be sitting here thinking, I might just eat this up, take the damage, not block with these attacks, and then backswing him next turn.
Got it. It seems like Chris is taking a lot of time contemplating.
Yeah, he did draw the 2 cards, and you'll notice that the cards that he drew were not more attacks. So this is going to change his turn. I don't think he'll throw another Helldunk, the only other attack in his hand. He will probably kind of abort that strategy, save that Helldunk for next turn, and hope to draw a better lethal hand. He also has, oh wow, I am being proven completely wrong, and he is just really throwing all the Helldunks. I don't understand the strategy here, except for to get some damage and force the issue, get that momentum that I talked about earlier. The other thing is he can rely on the 2 Templar in his hand, which are defensive cards, but he still needs to be able to pass those blocks. And if he's committed out because he played a lot of attacks, it'll be hard for him to block with them.
Well, and this is this aggressive play that I mentioned
Very
before
aggressive.
from Chris. I mean, Chris just seems like he loves going all in. He loves getting the advantage as soon as possible. With only starting with 19 vitality, it seems like he almost feels like he's always in the position. He's got to get his turn up on the opponent. Otherwise, it may just slip out of his control.
Yeah, and the thing about Jason's deck that Chris might have figured out really quickly is that it can do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
If he reads Jason's character cards and figures out the powerful abilities he has access to, he really can't afford not to block everything that Jason throws at him.
see both of these guys. Here we go. Here goes Chris.
Yep. No, yeah, as you heard him say, this now I'm just going to build out, which is what I thought he would do after the first hell dunk. But he did get some damage in. He got that one momentum. And Jason did exactly what I suggested he might do earlier. Hold on to that attack, hope for a better attack turn. And if he does draw the orange now, I hope he would. He's had multiple turns where he hasn't seen it. He should be able to put Chris in a serious position of hurting.
The serious position of hurting Jason is down to 16 vitality. That was a big swing that last turn.
Yeah, he took 13 vitality there, and that was, he took half of the first 8, which would be 4, putting him to 25, and then he took the full, I guess it would be 9, down to 16 vitality. And how I'm getting 9 is he used his character ability twice, giving him +2 damage.
Got it.
Yeah. Jason's checking Chris's cards, just making sure what Familiar Faces does. It cancels an action card. Jason doesn't have an action card, but he's trying to decide what card of Chris's he needs to get rid of with the Hunt for Spiders and Dragons, which he has in his hand. So if he does attack this turn, he'll play these Hunts for Spiders or Dragons first, and then it allows him to turn one card in Chris's staging area face down.
Oh, and he's checking it again. It's one of the things we mentioned before is that you always want to make sure that you know what's on the board, not just for you, but for your opponent as well as also what cards they may have played. And here's the advantage that we kind of talked about before is Chris is playing the same Lord Raptor deck. So Jason knows his deck list.
Jason knows it inside out.
Right,
at
whereas
this point,
Chris is still going blind. I mean, obviously after this game 1, win or lose, he'll have a better understanding of what Jason is running, but at the same time, Chris is blind right now.
Yep, and which is funny because he hasn't checked a lot of Jason's cards yet, or at least not physically so. But he's a very perceptive player, as you saw in his player introduction. Very casual, very,
yes.
Doesn't give much away.
Just here to play the cards.
Yeah, just here to play cards. Yep. And so Jason does lead off with the Spiders and Dragons, like I said. And he'll probably follow it up with another one and then the kick. And the kick that he has in his hand is C's kick, which is the one he holds there. Yep. This is an interesting choice in his deck. At least I always thought it was when I heard that he was playing it. And the reason he plays it is because it gives him the ability to play more attacks on lower difficulty, and it also gives speed pump to his kick attack, or it can be comboed into speed. And like I said at the beginning, when you were asking me how their decks differed, Jason wants to throw one big attack that Chris can't block, and Chris wants to throw a lot of little attacks that end up killing.
Just mounting up, yep.
So the speed is very useful, or I guess not useful, but it's necessary to get that one attack to the unblockable level. So what Chris does here will probably determine if Jason's going to win the game, believe it or not. The other card in Jason's hand, the other attack, is kind of his secret weapon that he's always been talking about, this Blazing Blitz Vortex. And the reason it's interesting with Robert is it allows Jason to play the powerful ability of 5, which is +5 damage, without the attack even needing to be a kick.
Oh, man. So these guys, one of the things I want to note too is you can see at the top of the screen, Jason, look at how serious his face is right now. You can tell just specifically by his body language, you can tell how he knows this is an important attack here.
Yeah, no, I haven't been looking at Jason's body language yet. I'm just so focused on their hands and the cards on the board, but you're right. And I think it's because what I said earlier, Jason knows this is his chance to win the game right here. And a lot of it will depend on how Chris responds to this attack.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of players actually before. Chris mentioned before he's calm, cool, collected. He just always seems like he's got this just gigantic boat of confidence. He knows exactly, even if the match isn't going his way, he's always got an out. Jason, he's moving frantically. Look at him. He's staggered. He couldn't even grab the dice. Look at this. You can tell that he feels like this is it. This is all or nothing at this moment.
Yeah, and he actually just drew into another attack, which is going to give him the ability to win this turn. Previously, the Air Tiki in Chris's staging area would allow him to block Jason's big kill move because it would return its speed to printed. And Jason was still kind of in the position where he didn't know if he could play that. And now that he drew another kick attack, he can actually play that first, have a bit more, put more pressure on Chris to use the Air Tiki, and then that final attack should be able to kill him. At least that's my casual opinion.
How it's being perceived right now. Well, I mean, I hate to use the word upset, but I mean, if Jason were to come out and take the first game 1-0, we did mention, though, Chris is playing his standard Lord Raptor deck. He didn't really know what Jason had on his side of the board. So going into game 2, even if Jason does go up one game, he'll have a much better understanding of the pacing and the cards that Jason is playing with. So, and there, look at this. See Jason at the top. Look at that. That is a thinker, ladies and gentlemen. That gentleman, he is doing math so hard right now.
Well, he's in a hard place now that the Templar block. And if you'll see, look at Chris's hand. Chris drew a bunch of attacks. Looking at this, it's like Jason will win this turn or Jason will lose next turn.
Yeah.
And he knows that too. Jason knows that his deck isn't very defensive. So he basically has to solve the puzzle, which is winning here. And so he has to get his largest attack through. And I don't think he can do it. He doesn't have enough cards in his hand to do it right now. But if he fakes Chris out, he might be able to get in enough damage to kind of throw him off or make him block with some of those attacks. You never know. This is one of the struggles with Robert, is you have fewer cards in your hand and less draw, and so you get yourself into these situations where you run out of resources in your hand, the cards themselves.
Yeah, we see Jason is really mulling this one over. I mean, he doesn't have, it doesn't seem like a lot of options, but he might, if he can just get all the calculations correct and move his way over. Okay, now he's questioning what Chris has on his side of the board. This is it. This might be the final check and balance.
Yeah, no, he wants to know everything. Jason's a very thorough player, very observant, and right now he wants to just make sure, everything is as he kind of thought going into the turn. Did you commit this card when you made the block? Did you do this? What happened here? What did you do in the prior turn? And Lord Raptor is tricky like that because his response effect carries over from turn to turn. So whatever Lord Raptor did on his own turn will somehow impact, or could somehow impact, him in this turn. And what I mean by that is the -1 difficulty, -1 to his block modifiers. And Jason has decided to abort this turn, which I believe is smart. What I just said earlier, he doesn't have enough cards to do it. It's perfectly true. So now Jason's in this position where he's going to try to bait Chris into trying to kill him, but failing to kill him. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Again, it depends on what Chris draws. It's kind of hard to see his hand at this point in time.
I believe that's actually both players going through their discard pile.
Yes, yeah,
they're just checking to see what they've played so far and what they have left.
Yep, yeah. Chris is being pretty smart here. Looks like looking through his discard pile before deciding to review. And review in UFS, you get to discard a card before drawing cards. So it's kind of like drawing an extra card or drawing a more effective or useful card.
All right, Chris.
Chris, I can hear some smack talk coming from the players.
Yeah, I think I might have heard a "you know the deal." Oh yeah, he's getting ready to start rolling.
Yeah, one of Lord Raptor's signatures moves, Ultimate Undead, where he's playing the guitar. And this does not bode that well for Jason. There's already a lot of attacks in Chris's hand, and I don't think Jason's going to be able to survive this turn, having took 1.5 Hell Dunks the turn before.
Oh yeah.
But you never know.
Chris, though, I feel like he's in a very familiar position here. This is the deck that he's been winning with. He knows exactly how it runs. When do you think it's time to pull the trigger and go all in?
Yeah, and I think that was the only question mark for him coming into this matchup is, I've played this against a ton of decks, but I haven't played this against the symbol that I told Jason I wanted to play that I think isn't very good.
Is that true?
And 2, not many people play Robert as the character. So, I know he was just jittery about what could Jason throw at me just because he doesn't see it on a regular basis. Everyone knows what Chris's deck does, and it does it very, very well.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically, Chris set himself up for this fate right here. I mean, he's never played, if he hasn't played against that symbol, the death symbol.
Not often, no.
And specifically against Robert.
Definitely not against Robert. And Jason just took that. So Jason took another 8 damage. He's down to 8 vitality, which is, it's precarious. I don't think Jason can survive, having seen his hand earlier.
Yeah, these guys, it looks like Chris, you see him shuffling through his hand again.
Yeah, and I don't think Jason's going to be too happy with this outcome because he was in charge. He had won that dice roll. He went first. He did the self-destruct. He did basically everything he thought he needed to do to win this game. But then he wasn't given a strong enough hand to break through Chris's Templars on the last turn.
Yeah, it seemed like Jason just he started off, as you mentioned, he started off so well, and then he just no momentum, getting no attack cards.
Yeah. The main component to this match, and it's subtle, especially if you're a new viewer watching, is that air tiki that's just sitting in the bottom left hand side of Chris's staging area, because it gives Chris the juice to win, and it also gives him the defensive piece to survive any of Jason's speed pumped attacks, because it reduces one speed of an attack back to printed right before blocking. So with Jason wasted all of his enhances to speed pump, that would just negate one of them. So Jason kind of has to bait it out. Interestingly enough, we're going to see some sideboards after this game, and I know Jason has some tricks to deal with that one card, that air tiki.
Oh,
So game 2, I mean, you never know. If Jason gets that card out after Chris gets the air tiki out, it could be a whole different game.
Okay, I'm not going to ask you what that card is, but you're saying there's a card.
There's a couple cards, actually.
There's something. I would assume knowing Jason, he's got, obviously the whole catalog. You know you're going against this Lord Raptor deck. You know how Chris plays. Obviously super easy, not super easy to counter, but he knows what he has available.
Yeah, and
throw
that
in.
was always, I think, one of the difficult things for Jason to come up with his match. He wanted to build a deck that doesn't just counter Lord Raptor, because it'd be very easy to go, actually I guess it still wouldn't be easy, but it'd be a lot easier to just look at your opponent's deck, try to choose all the counters to it, and build it to beat it.
Build it off
Jason wanted to build a deck that's viable in a competitive tournament setting that can beat a variety of decks, including, hopefully, Lord Raptor.
So for you guys at home, if you're not taking note, get out those notepads now. Make sure you write down all the cards that Jason is using in his deck currently, because apparently this is the new meta.
I believe Jason just scooped. He knows he lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, ran out of blocks there.
Yeah, so very interesting match 1. And our current reigning champion
Just continues to roll through things.
just continues to roll through things.
This
so-
matches the expectations of the community. I told you, a lot of people thought Jason had no chance, and I think he had a chance there. He just didn't have an answer for air tiki when it came out.
Okay, so now here's the question before we go into this potential. This is match point. Jason losing 2 games, knowing Jason, seeing how he was in the opening interview, having interacted with him today. Are we sure he's not just building dramatic tension?
I don't know. I mean,
Is he trying to lull Chris into this false sense of security? He knows what he's got in his sideboard. He knows obviously that the way that that game played out appeared that he wasn't sandbagging.
No. It's a very good question. But the fact of the matter is, he just didn't have the right tools to deal with Chris in that game, and sometimes you just don't draw them. I know his main board had 1 or 2 tools that could have helped him, but he just didn't see them at the right time.
Yeah,
and that's difficult, especially when you're in a position where you think you could have won based on your opening hand and going into the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
So hopefully Jason isn't deterred and frustrated and comes out kicking in the second game, especially after sideboard.
Yeah, because I feel it's obviously one thing you're mentally going in from another match. If the match is close and you feel like you could have won, it's way more demoralizing than just being absolutely decimated, because then you're like, oh, just draw didn't go my way, or I should have done this instead. When it's that close, being able to go back and review this, Jason, I don't know what he's gonna think.
Yeah, I think he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna be mad at himself at all, because I didn't see any play mistakes. The decisions he made weren't exactly wrong. He just didn't have the luck. He could have decided to go deeper on his turn that he decided to back out on, but I don't think he would have killed Chris. He might have if Chris misplayed it. And sometimes you got to take that risk. Do I want to do this and hope my opponent makes a mistake, or do I want to take the risk that my opponent won't draw his hand next turn to kill me? And that's a big part of UFS, is trying to, I guess, posture and also tell the opponent something. I think he told Chris at that moment that he's a sitting duck. Really, the back out was like a sitting duck. It's like, I'm gonna throw this one attack and then do nothing. Yeah, that's very. It doesn't show a position of confidence, and then Chris just pounced on it, as you can see. You heard him say, "Oh, you know the deal."
You know the deal.
I'm just here to play cards.
I'm here to play the cards. Well, one of the great things about UFS is you can see how quickly that match went, and it wasn't just because it was a steamrolling. It was because it was actually a very close match. So that's one of the things when you're playtesting a deck. How many times do you play it before knowing that this is as lean as can be? This is how it's going to run.
Oh, if going into a serious competition, I'll play it probably anywhere 50 to 100 times. Against a variety of different matchups, different characters, different symbols. As we talked about, Jason's running a seldomly used symbol, which is his advantage, because sometimes in UFS you'll forget about certain cards, and they'll come bite you in the behind when when you see them across the table from you and you weren't expecting them.
So if you're anywhere from 50 to 100 times, depending on the different times that you run it, how many times would you say Jason has playtested this deck? And has he playtested specifically against this Lord Raptor setup?
I know he's playtested against this specific situation, which is why it's so nerve-wraching for me, because I know he knows what the position he's in.
Exactly.
And he's still, happily taking up the challenge essentially, because that's what it is. Chris's deck, proven successful, and for good reasons. Jason's deck, kind of gimmicky. But can pull through in certain pinches in certain situations, especially if it catches the opponent unawares. And I think you heard Jason mention in his interview, and he loves surprises and things like that. Well, this is his
This
type
is
of
the
surprise.
surprise.
This is surprise. He didn't catch Chris with it in game 1. I do hope he gets him in game 2.
Yeah.
But only time will tell.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I would like to see this go to a game 3, and I'm still not over the theory that Jason isn't sandbagging or that he isn't trying to build dramatic comeback, that he's got some additional cards in his sideboard he's going to switch in.
He does have some additional cards in his sideboard. And I hope he switches in all the ones that he was talking to me about switching in.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, let's actually talk about one of the other things they actually mentioned previously is that there's an East Coast event coming up for UFS, and it's supposed to be a big one.
Yeah, the next big tournament is the U.S. Nationals this year, 2016, and it's being held in Atlanta, which is a great venue. A lot of very strong UFS players live in the East Coast and in and around Atlanta, and so we're expecting good numbers, and I'm personally really excited for it. Yeah.
Or do you already have your deck drafted up? You know what you're playing?
No, and that's because there's going to be a release in between here, and then the Battle for Power Mega Man set will be released after Gen Con near the end of August. And so, as a competitive player, you really have to keep an eye on how the card pool changes and grows. So I kind of have an idea of what I want to try out, but I have no idea what I'm going to play yet. Yeah. So
have you seen any kind of like sneak previews or anything that you know is
there
coming?
has been some spoilers.
Yeah,
just a few. And really, they're just whetting my appetite and telling me I can't decide before I see the whole set, because I know it's going to be influential. And as any player would be, I'm super excited for a lot of what UFS has to offer coming up in the next few months.
Well, speaking of the other things coming up, we've actually, I mean, guys, we've seen, we mentioned it behind us, we've got Mortal Kombat, we've got more Street Fighter, we've got some other additional titles that are coming into the fray, and that's, one of the cool things is that, just like when you played with action figures in your bedroom, you're able to know who's going to win between Scorpion and Ryu. You can find out in UFS.
I have Ryu, and I'm pretty sure he'll beat Scorpion.
Oh, what? Man! Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I shouldn't really throw that out there, but that's part of the appeal of UFS is, everyone has their favorite characters, and they go, well, who would beat who in a fight,
Not only did you just go straight bias,
straight Street Fighter
it wasn't like, let's have a gentleman's conversation about this. I'll take the debate. I'll see you. So, but I mean, I would love to see these guys play again. I would love to see Scorpion versus Ryu. So once those sets are both out and we get all those cards, that'd be great. But we have another match that we need to get in. Where
sideboarding's done, I think.
Sideboarding is done. Chris is up 1-0. Jason is done sandbagging, and he's going to now pull out a victory. Mark it in your notebooks, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah. So now, is it Jason's turn to decide whether he goes first or second?
Yeah. If you lose the first game in UFS, you get to decide if you're going to go first or second. And no surprise here, Jason opts to go first again.
Yeah.
And hopefully this time it works out better for him. We didn't get to see exactly what cards they sided into their deck. But I'll tell you, like I said, Jason probably sided in extra cards to deal with Air Tiki. And if I see them, I will note them for the audience.
If we see any cards in Jason's hand that has a photo of him on it, we know that was specifically that's the one he sideboarded.
Yeah, the owner of the game card.
Yeah, owner of the game card. Any opponent named Chris instantly loses 20 vitality. That's the sideboard card, right? That's what he did.
Jason's far too has too much integrity to do such a thing. I mean, if I was him, I would have done it instantly.
Something to spice.
At least to throw him off.
Yep. So we got both of these guys looking at their hands. Okay, Jason has decided he knows how he's going to go about things.
Yeah, and he has a okay hand. The problem with his hand is it doesn't have a lot of low difficulties. So he might, and he passed that 3 difficulty card on a 5. That's a good build for him with this 6 hand size.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. One of the things from the previous tournament that we both casted together was we've seen Chris actually ended up failing a lot of his checks. He's playing the same exact deck as before, correct?
Yeah, and Chris has 3-2 checks in his deck. Those hell dunks we saw played at last game. And if they're checked at the wrong time, I mean,
It's just bad news.
It's just bad news. Oh, yeah, he passes that because Lord Raptor gave his checks +1. See, there's the hell dunk and the failed card. But the interesting thing about Lord Raptor is he's actually a character that's fairly strong going second. So even though Jason needs to go first because there's a general advantage to going first,
Chris is happy being
playing
in second
Raptor.
place.
It's not as bad as it would be if he wasn't Lord Raptor, and that's because he can give his control checks +1 if he reviews an attack card, which is what he did, and he marked it with his dice there in the top left corner of that.
Well, we'll see here if Jason can mount the offense.
Well, the thing that happened to Jason last game was he didn't draw the attacks on the turn he needed to, which was 1 turn before the one he finally was able to go in on. And this turn, it looks like he has 3 attacks in his hand, 3 that he kept from his opening hand. So he didn't draw any more juice, but I don't think he necessarily needs any more because he couldn't pass any more than 3 attacks. So this is going to be a pivotal moment, and you see Jason taking some time. He can choose to attack, or he can choose to just build some more. And I think he's going to attack. What you do is you start with this Spiders and Dragons card, just like last time. He can turn one of Chris's foundations face down, and then from there, who knows what's going to happen. It was a bad check for Jason, unlucky, and had to commit 2 cards to pass that C kick. And you know, this is why I thought the C kick was a bit questionable. Namely, it's very easy for Chris to block.
Well, I would definitely note that turn that Jason, I mean, you can see the speed at which he's moving. I mean, he's ready and raring to go. He just wants to get in as much damage as he can, as quick as he can.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Chris, I mean, seems once again, I mean, you can look at him, the expression on his face hasn't changed. He's sitting in the same exact posture. He's not, kicking around. He's just there. He just brushed his hair out of his face. He's just so cool. I mean, with every movement, he just seems like he gains more machismo going into this matchup here.
Yeah, and like I said, that's easy for Chris to block, which is maybe why that kick's not the greatest. But here, this is Jason's chance. Jason needs to deliberate. Can he get this Blazing Blitz Vortex through? Oh no, he opts for the kick. He's playing a bit of a control thing here. And something I just noticed, harking back to last game and this game, is that Jason's character ability is to take cards from his hand and discard them for powerful. And playing that Spiders and Dragons first is getting rid of 1 card from his hand, so kind of giving away the opportunity to do that. And I remember in the turn that he went into before he lost, he had played a couple Spiders and Dragons first.
Yes.
If he had held them for his abilities for some of those kicks instead of playing them to turn a couple cards face down, he might have had a better chance of winning there. Just some hindsight.
Just some hindsight.
Yeah. It's easy for me in this chair.
Yeah, it's easy for sure to be looking over the matchup, and obviously we can see what both players have in their hands, they have on the field, but we can also, like we said, players can just tell by their body language. Jason is he's stumped. He's not exactly sure the order in which he needs to do things.
Yeah, I think the issue with what happened here is that Chris held the perfect cards to block what Jason has done. Jason just threw a high attack, and Chris has held on to a high block. And he had a mid and a high, and Jason's throwing a mid and a high. And so it's playing right into what he had. Now, Jason, of course, has no way of knowing this. It's just a bit of an unfortunate situation, as well as credit to Chris for choosing to hold certain cards.
The correct combination.
Knowing Jason's deck, even as slightly as he does from playing 1 game, he's held on to the right ones.
That's true.
And Jason's going to get some damage in here, maybe, if Chris checks bad. At the very least, I believe he's going to play this combo ability. And
I love the statement that he might get some damage.
No,
He'll get
I-
some damage in, maybe.
I actually don't think he's going to get it in anymore.
That's a yep. Just as quickly as this game moves, there it is.
It's so quick. It's actually sometimes I think is a struggle to cast, and you know, just because players are doing things quicker than we're talking, and there's so much going on in these games. That's the fun of UFS. Things can change quickly, and with all the control checks going on, you can't control all of it. You control some of it with your deck building. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And it's like we mentioned before, it's basically modeled right after a fighting game. And
Yes,
as quick
yeah.
as fighting games are, this card game is just as fast, if
Yeah.
not even quicker.
Yeah, you've seen comebacks. You've seen all sorts of things in fighting games. You've seen perfects. It happens in UFS too. And like I said, Chris gets the full block having held the perfect cards. Jason just has to build now. He can't get damage in. I can't believe he didn't get damage out of that turn 2 going first. I mean, I can because Chris had the right cards,
Right.
but I can't because it's just such bad luck. It's almost as if Jason doesn't want to risk going all in with that card he still has in his hand, the Blazing Blitz Vortex. But at the same time, I don't blame him.
Yeah. You got to try and get in damage when you can, especially after that game 1, we seen, you know, it was very close, but Lord Raptor is just able to just chunk, you know, big chunks of damage. And look at this, Chris.
And there's that air tiki back. Oh, Jason has to do something about it next turn.
I hate to see that sort of thing happen, especially with Chris up 1 game already.
Yep.
Jason, I believe in you. I know that you can do it. You just got to make me believe even harder.
Hopefully he draws self-destruct, or hopefully he draws his own terrain, Magogen, to destroy the air tiki. If he does not, he is going to lose this match in my prediction. Jason drew pretty much dead from what I can see.
Yeah, I didn't see the self-destruct in there.
No, I just see a bunch of gray. And this is where Jason's true colors might show. He's going to have to make a very tough decision of what to hold on to try to defend Chris's coming onslaught. He knows Chris is going to attack next turn, probably with air tiki now out. He knows he's in a weaker position now, not having dealt damage the turn before after attacking twice. So now he's behind on build, he's behind just on hand management, and he's going to have to catch up by making his own strong blocks. So where Chris held the low, mid, and the high and gained some benefit from doing so, Jason now has to hold on to the right cards to fully block Chris's onslaught and survive, essentially.
Do you feel like there was any chance there that Jason could have maybe bluffed a little bit more? Basically holding more cards in hand, knowing that Chris is going to try and be more offensive?
I think it's a tough situation because if he doesn't play anything, he could just slip further behind. And I think what he did was correct. At least the number of cards he played is correct. He played 3 cards, which means he's going to open up his hand to draw more if he survives this turn. And he might draw into that self-destruct next, or more ways to get rid of the air tiki. And at the same time, he knows with the cards that he has out, he can probably only pass 3 blocks. So holding on to 3 cards to block with makes sense. The issue is none of those block modifiers are good. And right now, he doesn't have any speed reduction out, from what I can see. So Chris could kill him this turn.
Yeah, we seen him.
Just
Chris,
depends.
Yeah,
Just depends.
Chris, as he was drawing his cards, you seen him pretty much immediately. He fanned his hand out to see what he had, and he immediately checked his discard pile. I think he's feeling pretty strong in this position right now.
Yeah, and it's a sign of a really good player to check the discard pile before the turn starts, because it helps you decide what to review and what get rid of going into your next turn. It just helps you kind of refresh your mind as well. And Jason dodged a bullet. Chris didn't draw enough attacks to go in here. And, you know, Jason might draw self-destruct, and this game might go on, and he might have a better chance of winning at this point now.
Yep, and we see Jason is actually checking Chris's discard pile now.
Yeah, he's probably saying, you know, okay, Chris didn't attack me this turn. Has he already checked a lot of the cards that he needs to kill me with, like especially Hell Dunk? And he did check 1 at the beginning of the game. I don't know how many Ultimate Undeads are there. But, you know, it's also possible for Chris to just run out of steam as well if he has bad luck with what he draws.
That's true.
Yeah.
Or gets any bad checks again.
Yeah, but if you look at Chris's hand, he's got some very deadly cards in his hand. He just, 1, doesn't have momentum, so the Hurricane Upper's not going to be too deadly until he gets it. 2, he doesn't have any of his lead-off Hell Dunks. He only has the Ultimate Undead. I don't think he likes to play the Ultimate Undead unless he has a card that follows up after that will make strong benefit out of the Ultimate Undead, which is a testament to Chris. I've seen other Raptor players just play the Ultimate Undead and have to abort their turns, which is a waste.
Well, we're here in kind of a stagnant position. You can see Jason once again. Look at he's not even looking at his cards.
Yeah,
He's just
I really-
straight out, just mentally envisioning what he can do.
Yeah, and I really wonder what's going through his mind right here. You can tell he's thinking. He knows what's in his hand. I don't know what type of signal he wants to send Chris here. Obviously that he's thinking and trying to decide if he can win the game or if he has any options out of the game. But he's certainly not presenting himself to be in a strong position quite yet. I didn't see what he drew, so I can't really comment on if he has.
He went
any
through them
outs.
very quickly.
Did he? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think largely because he was looking for the self-destruct. And if he didn't get it, he's probably just, what am I going to do? And I can see he didn't. So he can't get into Chris with the hand he has right here. Largely because he just doesn't have enough oomph. Again, like I mentioned, the Tiki can reset the speed of one attack. So if he dedicates a lot of resources to the one attack, Chris will just kind of shrug it off and block that one.
Well, Jason here, he's got time to mull it over. This is a show match,
Yep.
so obviously these guys are, it's a little more gentlemanly. But when you're in when you're in a more tournament setting, how long do you think is too long to contemplate before your opponent knows that you've got no options?
I think it's just a matter of where you are in the tournament. Certainly timed rounds are different than an untimed situation. And when we're dealing with significant matches near the end of the competition, the time limit's off, but you're still not allowed to effectively stall or purposefully get under your opponent's skin. And then with the referee there, I'm sure Shane is looking over everything and making sure Jason's keeping things rolling.
Yeah, you could just reach over and slap him
Yeah,
if
yeah.
needed. We've seen how stern he was in that intro.
Yeah,
So
you saw it.
he
He has his eyes on him. And,
Yeah. No joke. So as
Yeah.
we see here, Jason, we've seen that kick come out.
Yeah, and Jason is digging. So he's like I said, his hand wasn't great, but it put him in a situation where he had to attack and see what Chris is going to do. And so the one good thing about this is if Chris ends up blocking with any of the cards in his hand, he's getting rid of his own attacks, which means Jason might survive another turn or reduce Chris's ability to kill him in the near future. Chris could also choose to take a riskier role here and not block with those attacks and really just kind of see how far he can push the envelope to hold on to a good attack hand and improve upon it to finish Jason off.
It appears as though Chris just lost some vitality.
Yeah,
He just
yeah,
took that attack from
That's
Jason.
exactly what I said.
Yeah.
Chris, and the funny thing there is that Chris kind of tells Jason that the cards in my hand, they're probably cards I want to hold on
Too
to.
valuable to
Yeah,
even
too
mess with your
valuable to
attack
block
right now.
with.
Yep.
So Jason might take that as a hint to attack more and say, I want you to get rid of those cards, or I want you to take more.
I want you to take even more.
Exactly.
Yep.
Or he might go, well, I got a little bit in, time to pull out and survive.
Yep. Oh, nope.
No,
He
no,
goes in with
no,
another.
He's going.
If you're going to go, you might as well go all in.
Yep. And yeah, I'm really interested to see how when Chris will decide to start blocking these. If he'll take another, I guess in this case he took 7 from the first attack. I'm curious if he decides to take another, in this case it would be 5 unless Jason has more damage bump.
I always feel like one of the indicators that your opponent is really thinking is when they're stifling through their cards, when they're trying to look. As we've seen, they look through the discard pile or they're shuffling the cards in their hand to look. Chris hasn't moved once since he's kept those 3 cards in hand. He hasn't even hesitated, like, maybe I'll block or
No.
maybe I'll use this. No, look at he's.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, Chris has played this deck a lot. He plays his own deck a lot. He knows. I said 50 plus. Chris has played his deck at least 50 times.
Oh,
I
yeah.
guarantee you. At least won the last 10, right? So
Yeah, I
and
mean,
he
that's at
played
least-
it in the event
yep.
before as well. So that's 20 games right there. Even if he 2-0'd everyone. So he has a feel for his deck. It's almost like
Yeah.
a instinct at that point. Yeah.
Which is amazing, even considering that Jason, Jason came into this deck, or Chris came in not knowing what cards Jason had in his deck.
And he's already got a feel for what Jason can do,
Yeah.
which is a testament to his skill. Well, Chris decided to take that too.
Wow.
He's doing just what I said. He's just saying, okay, what can Jason throw at me? And now Jason pulls back. And so this is good for Jason, but it probably won't be enough for him to win the game with. It really depends. If Chris doesn't draw any more attacks, Chris again might decide not to attack. If he draws even one more attack, I think we're going to see Chris make a push to win the game, and then who knows what's going to happen. It really depends what draws Chris gets out of the the ultimate undead ability.
So Chris, Jason actually scratching his head now. Look at him. He's gone through almost every range of body language to
Yes,
basically
yeah.
indicate that he's thinking as hard as he can. Yeah. So, what is going through Chris's mind right now?
I think, I mean, in Chris's situation, he's in a great situation. He's not dead. The fact that Jason just played that manhunt means that he's going to survive this turn, because he would never play that manhunt and then attack some more. So Chris did exactly what he wanted out of this turn. He got to keep the attacks in his hand, and he survived. And he put cards out of Jason's hand at the same time. So as I said, he's looking to see if he can find another attack, a fourth attack. And what he's going to do is go with that decision to try to win the game, or push his advantage more and build more cards.
See, I was actually thinking more along the lines. Chris was like, "Come on already! How many more? Are you gonna go in or are you not? What are we gonna do here, Jason?"
Yeah, it's
'Cause-
almost like he's waiting for Jason to show him all his stuff.
Yeah.
And after the first game, I'm not too surprised. It's sometimes better to be wary when you get a lead in a game like UFS, where things can change so quickly. You don't want to be too overconfident. And I think at this point, he's given Jason a full chance to show him everything he's got.
Yep.
And he's just been so much better at posturing in these last two games with getting those air tikis out and keeping them out, that he has the confidence now to win this game.
We even just holding on to the correct blocks as well, as you mentioned previously. It just seems like Chris is in the driver's seat. He knows exactly what's going on.
Yeah, it takes some serious confidence in your deck and your player skill to go, yep, not going to block. Not even going to try to block. Just going to take damage, because I know you can't kill me, and you're just wearing down your defensive position by me allowing you to do this. Yeah. That's the ebb and the flow of UFS. And the thing is, Chris drew a card that gives him even more filter going into this turn. He drew the Shield Ram card, and so he can play that after he plays Kneecapper or after he plays Hurricane Upper, and it will show him even more cards. And again, when I say more cards, he's looking for more attacks.
Yeah.
Because as I said, Chris's deck plays a lot of little attacks, and they get bigger, bigger, bigger,
Just
bigger,
mount
bigger,
up,
bigger. Yeah. And that's what's going to happen here. Jason really needs to consider blocking this with the card he's been holding on to as a kill card all this time, and then from there hoping to commit Chris's character. He really needs to do that. I don't know if he'll recognize that and do that. That's something we're going to have to see. And see, that's the card he has face up there in front of him. This secret weapon of his can be used defensively. It has an ability in the card pool after being blocked with that allows him to commit Chris's character if Chris goes ahead and plays 2 enhances on a subsequent attack, which is good because it stops Chris's small attacks from getting larger and larger and larger as the turn goes on, because that's coming from his character ability.
It seems like we've kind of hit that moment once again, guys. We see here's Jason.
Yeah, Jason's doing exactly, well, not exactly what I thought, but I mean, he had to make that choice. He had to say, do I want to get rid of this attack and do what I said, use that attack defensively? And he's decided not to do it. And I think, I'll be honest, I think this spells his doom. I think he's done for here. Only some very bad luck from Chris as far as what he draws will keep Jason alive. Interesting enough, I mean, Jason played defensively well on that first attack. He made Chris's attack mid, with his manhunt, and then he full blocked it. So Jason's still at 29 life. And this is what he has going for his advantage. As I said in the last game, could be very hard for Chris to win on a single turn, even if he has all the ramp-up pieces. And especially if Jason blocks the right attacks fully. So at this point in time, Lord Raptor having to get through all 29 life will depend on what he draws with these filter cards. And the nice thing for Chris is Jason kind of played into his hand here a little bit. By not blocking the kneecapper stayed in the card pool, and then Chris gets to play this shield ram, which combos off of the kneecapper. Had Jason blocked the kneecapper would have been discarded from the card pool, and then this combo wouldn't have been possible. Chris would have had to play the Hurricane Upper in his hand, which I don't believe he wants to play until later on in the turn because it has such a low difficulty of 3. But he did get damage in, so it's down to 24. We're really counting numbers here, and I don't know if we're going to see the indication from Chris or if he is just as smooth as he gives off and he doesn't even sit to do mental math. He just has a faith in his deck that he's going to get there. So he did another 6. We're down to 18. And has he drawn more attacks? I think he has. I think the card in his far left of his hand is an attack. Yeah, it is. I think it's another Hurricane Upper. So we're going to look at 6, and then we're going to look at 6, 7, 7, I think is what we're going to see. 6, 7, 7 would kill Jason. Jason's going to have to block at least one more time. The issue is, of course, that the speed of these attacks are too much for Jason to handle at this point because of that air tiki. Yeah, sadly, Jason will lose.
Well, speaking of the T, we see Chris has got another one in his hand too. So
that's what's going to kill him is this Hurricane Upper. The second Hurricane Upper is going to kill him. This one's only going to come in for 6, but the next ones are also unblockable because they'll have the same speed or more. Actually, more in this case. And it comes back. I don't know if Jason would have survived if he blocked with the Blazing Blitz. If he blocked with the Blazing Blitz, and would Chris have done 2 enhances? Probably. One of them was stun, one of them was combo. Chris could have been played around that and just played one of the abilities, the combo ability. But it's just one of Jason's outs or one of the possible outs. Like I said, I would have blocked with it.
Yeah, and we see Jason actually took more damage there. He's down to 12 vitality.
Yeah, and this is game.
And Chris is
because Chris is going to be able to play that second Hurricane Upper that he found during this turn, and it's going to be 7 damage and then 7 damage. So 6, 7, 7.
There's no chance that Chris wants to make it interesting and bow out of the rest of this turn and allow Jason to come in and.
Well, Chris has already played the multiple ability, so Jason's just dead.
We're just waiting for official clarification.
We're waiting for this is it's all over but the crying at this point. And the pundits were right.
Not over until the official handshake.
Yeah, it's not over till the official handshake. Maybe there'll be some judge intervention, but Shane seems to be like, oh, I'm not doing nothing over here.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
There's the handshake. I mean, some people called it beforehand. You mentioned it. 2-0.
They called it, but I don't think they saw it coming in that fashion. Jason put up a really great fight.
Yeah. Yeah, so both of these guys, first match was very, very, very close. It seemed like it was Jason was just like 1 or 2 swings away, maybe 1 or 2 decisions, could have swung it his way. The second game, though.
Yeah, the first game, Jason didn't draw the attacks the turn he needed them, which is the turn before he kind of poked in. And the second game, I don't know if Jason had a lot of decisions to make in that game, and I think he made the right ones in some cases and the wrong ones in others.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell what combination of right and wrong decisions will sink you, or what's right and wrong until hindsight and what Chris does kind of changes it.
Yeah. Well, the question that I really want to know now is what does this do for the confidence of Chris? I mean, Chris, he's on this just absolute warpath. He's annihilating everybody in front of him. Jason is the one who issued the challenge. Now, granted, he gave himself a certain stipulation. He had to play. He had to play death, and a different cards than had been seen before. Do you feel like Chris this is it? He's on cloud 9. He's ready to just I
don't know what this will do for Chris. I mean, as a fellow competitive player, I hope it doesn't. I don't think it'll go to his head, but I hope it doesn't go to his head to the point where he continues to just play Lord Raptor, because he's kind of limiting his options, even though Lord Raptor is one of the best characters in the game.
Yep.
Chris is only, at this point, known for succeeding with that, and he needs to kind of grow out of that mold competitively. And so hopefully this doesn't stop him from doing that. I don't think it will. I think Chris sees a whole different aspect of UFS the more he plays these types of games, especially against decks like the Death deck that he hadn't seen before.
Yeah. Well, we've actually seen Chris during a lot of these matches. He's always cool, calm, collected, as we always mentioned. But let's actually throw it over to Lavender with our post-game interview and see if it actually went to his head or not.
I can't wait to see what the thoughts of these players were.
Yep.
What an epic boss battle that was. I'm joined with both competitors. Jason, don't look so sad, buddy. It might have been a 2-0, but you put up a great fight. How are you feeling?
I'm okay. Some of the answers I needed didn't pop up, and my kill card that I did draw into both games, I just was not able to play it.
Right. One thing I specifically wanted to ask you is there was two situations at the end of game 1 and game 2 where you could have chose to kind of go all in, all out, try to go for the throat and make it happen, but you held back and remained patient. What was going through your head during that time?
Well, at that time, I could have played the ditch 2 cards for powerful 5 twice, so that's 15 damage. But I'm pretty sure he was going to block either of those, and then I would have been completely wide open, and Lord Raptor can backswing really hard.
Right. So mostly just trying to cover your own ground, not overextend. So that game, I have to be honest, that kind of looked like the house that Air Tiki built. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, Air Tiki's amazing. It just gets that speed to out of control levels, and if you don't have specific answers, it'll just overwhelm you. So he didn't see those answers, and it's all over from there.
Excellent. So now that you've taken your Lord Raptor deck against a deck that you had no idea what was in it, what does this do for your confidence? Does it build it? Are you going to be looking at your next matchup like, it doesn't matter what this guy's got, I got it covered?
Oh, it definitely helps to know what you're up against for just about any matchup, but Lord Raptor's pretty consistent, and he can take on just about anybody, so I feel pretty good about him.
Excellent, excellent. Strong words. Final question for you, my friend. If you could have changed anything in your deck or perhaps brought a different element to the table, what would it have been?
Well, I don't know. I feel like it was pretty well prepared for the matchup. It just didn't happen to get what I needed at the right times. And like I said, the answers for his problems that are in there didn't show up. But the deck's built to be a rounded deck, not a Lord Raptor killer.
Right. Certainly, I heard a little bit from the casters as well. This deck is one that you can pretty much take anywhere at any time versus any opponent. So it's also kind of a deck that you need, I guess, less preparation with. Was that kind of your goal, to bring something like that to the table to show the community?
The community, I don't think people really realize that that Robert doesn't have to play kicks to play his powerful ability. There's Hizoku Prince can, not blow up to self-destruct. There's some really cool tricks in there that I don't see people playing, and I really wanted to show those, but unfortunately I didn't really get a chance to show how powerful it really is, because in testing and in play, it really just didn't go off like it needed to.
Right. So, with that being said, I'm going to kick it off to the casters. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We've got some great guys here. Thanks again.
Wow. We mentioned it before about this win possibly going to Chris's head. I think Chris Pratt's gone Hollywood.
Yeah, I think he might have already been there. This just kind of like cemented his star in the sidewalk.
Wow. So one of the things I want to note there is we heard from Jason that and you mentioned previously before that he had actually built this deck as more of just kind of an overall show of what Robert could do. May not have got to see the full potential here, but what did you take away from this matchup?
I took away what I thought Jason wanted to accomplish, and that was that Robert had the potential. He just didn't pull the trigger, and that wasn't to his own fault. He just didn't see the right cards at the right time. I said in game 1, turn 3, he didn't have it. In game 2, he just didn't get enough juice, again, at the right time, and he didn't have the opportunity to decide to go all in. Like, he did have that opportunity, but he made the right decision, I think.
Well, we've seen a very exciting matchup here, but we want you guys to be aware that there's a lot more excitement coming regarding UFS. We have the Atlanta event. We have the new set, and a little surprise, more show matches for you guys. Yeah. Are there any particular players that you would love to see face off?
I would love to see any of the amazing players more good players from Vegas. There's great players from Omaha. There's great players from the East, that out of Atlanta, even out of Michigan, out of the Northeast. Really, there's players all over the U.S. that are just amazing, and that would be great to see. And that unfortunately for Chris, they might surprise him. They might
He's the
surprise
king
him.
of the castle
He's
right
the
now,
king
you
of the
might as well,
castle
yeah.
right now. But I mean, they're tiki.
Yeah.
That technology's kind of old. That's like the Indian stuff.
Yeah. So if you want more info, be sure to head over to JascoGames.com, as well as be sure to hit that follow and subscribe button so you guys know when we have more exciting matches and other events coming up. So on behalf of myself, I am Mohawk Mike from Pro Gaming League. Garrett.
And I'm Garrett Brett, and I had a great time. Thanks again, Mike.
Hey, I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Yep.
It's a
Thank you
pleasure.
guys for
Yeah.
watching, and we'll catch you next time.